My boyfriend, Zach, woke up from a car accident with temporary amnesia. The catch? He mistook my best friend, Chloe, for his fiancée. To keep him from suffering any more brain trauma, the doctor suggested I play along. So, I had to swap identities with my best friend. We agreed to only act the part. No intimacy. No real relationship. We were just supposed to wait until Zach got his memory back, and then everything would return to normal. But 6 months passed. Zach showed absolutely no signs of getting better. Until today, when I was mindlessly scrolling through Reddit and stumbled upon a trending advice post. I got into a car crash, lost my memory, and mistook my girlfriend's best friend for my actual girlfriend. Now that I have my memory back, I realized I've actually fallen in love with the best friend. How do I explain this to my original girlfriend? The top comment, which had thousands of upvotes, offered a piece of advice. Keep faking the amnesia, obviously. It's the perfect chess move. If things go well, you get the best friend. If you regret it later, you can just pretend you just got your memory back. The poster had liked that comment. And the username of the poster belonged to Zach. I looked up just as Zach and Chloe walked through the front door. He was carrying several grocery bags, following closely behind Chloe. When he looked at her, the adoration in his eyes was so thick it practically spilled onto the floor. As it turned out, Zach had stopped acting a long time ago. He had made the lie his reality. Nora. You're home so early from work today. Zach and I just went to the grocery store. I was thinking of making some chicken noodle soup. You love that, right? Zach stood behind her. He gave me a polite, distant nod, then turned and walked into the kitchen. Ever since Zach lost his memory, in order to not be separated from him, I had been forced to live here as a guest in their house. I was the actual, legal girlfriend. Yet, every single day, I had to choke down my jealousy and watch him pour his heart and soul into loving another woman. Every time I saw them holding hands or hugging in front of me, my heart felt like it was being shredded by a dull knife. I could only comfort myself over and over again in my head. Just wait until Zach gets his memory back. Everything will go back to how it was. I had endured this torture for 6 months. I didn't get his recovery. Instead, I got the devastating news that he had actually fallen in love with Chloe. Chloe followed my gaze into the kitchen, looking at Zach's busy back. She lowered her voice and whispered in my ear, "I'm so sorry, Nora. I'm so useless." Zach still hasn't remembered anything. I looked down and let out a bitter laugh. She didn't know. You can never wake up someone who is pretending to be asleep. But don't worry, Chloe whispered, squeezing my arm. I'm keeping an eye on him for you. I won't let him do anything out of line. Yeah, I mumbled, my mouth tasting like ash. I actually just came back to grab something. I have to go out again in a bit. Just then, Zach called Chloe from the kitchen to help him. She immediately perked up and said, "Go do what you need to do, Nora. By the time you get back, dinner will be ready." I stood frozen in the hallway. I watched Chloe walk into the kitchen, put her hands, which she had just used to peel garlic, right up to Zach's nose. Smell it. Do my hands stink? Zach lovingly kissed her fingers and smiled. Not at all. You smell perfect. They laughed and teased each other, looking exactly like a real, deeply in love couple. Everything before my eyes was the exact married life I had dreamed of for years. Except the female lead wasn't me. Maybe they thought I had already walked out the door. Zach suddenly asked, "Has Nora been living in our guest room for 6 months now? Hasn't she found her own apartment yet?" Chloe was taken aback. She stammered, "Well, no. It's not safe for a girl to live alone. Plus, rent in this city is so expensive. Living with us makes her commute easier, and I feel better having her around. Why are you suddenly bringing this up?" Zach kept chopping vegetables, his voice firm and unwavering. "Tell her to move out. It's not convenient with the 3 of us living together. Every time I want to be intimate with you, I have to worry about a roommate being in the next room. Besides, I don't want you feeling uncomfortable in your own home. I was going to make that homemade pizza you love tonight. But the second you saw her, you changed it to soup because of her tastes. You're acting like a guest in your own house, Chloe." Chloe went quiet for a few seconds. Then, she leaned in and kissed his cheek. That kiss felt like a poisoned needle stabbing directly into my chest. Back when this all started, Chloe had sworn to God that she would keep her distance from Zach. In front of me, she used to avoid him as much as possible. But I didn't know when it started, she had become so comfortable, so natural, with being physical with my boyfriend. "I know you care about me," Chloe said softly. "But let's talk about this later. It's not that easy to find a good apartment right now." Zach was already prepared. I had a friend look at 2 places last week. They're close to our place, and very close to her office. Chloe had no choice but to agree. Fine. I'll talk to Nora when she gets back. My eyes burned with tears. I forced them back and looked around the apartment. I looked at every corner of this condo, a home I had designed and decorated piece by piece for our future wedding. After Zach's accident, my status changed from the owner of this house to a mere guest. All of my belongings had been packed up and shoved into the tiny guest room. In just 6 months, Chloe had completely erased every trace of my life here. And now, Zach wanted me to pack my bags and get out. The sound of their laughter drifting from the kitchen made my ears ache. I took a deep breath, turned around, and quietly slipped out the front door. I didn't go back to the office. Instead, holding on to the absolute last shred of hope, I went to the hospital. What if that Reddit post wasn't Zach? What if he really hadn't recovered his memory? What if his feelings for Chloe were just a mistake because his brain confused her with me? Zach Miller? Dr. Carter finally found his name in a thick stack of medical files. Oh, yes. I called him 3 months ago for a follow-up. He told me he had completely recovered his memory. I remember it was right around Thanksgiving. I even congratulated him on getting his memory back just in time for the holidays. I froze. On Thanksgiving, Chloe's parents came to visit. Zach had personally driven to the airport, picked them up, and played the most polite, welcoming host. That exact same day, my parents flew into the city with heavy bags, excited to see us. But Zach claimed he didn't recognize them. He literally had the building security kick my parents out of the lobby. It was only then, when I couldn't hide it anymore, that I had to tell my parents that Zach had lost his memory in a car crash. My mom had sighed and comforted me. As long as he's alive, that's what matters. The doctor said it's just a matter of time. But back then, Zach already had his memory. He knew he wasn't Chloe's boyfriend. He knew damn well that I was the woman who had loved him for 4 years, the woman he was supposed to marry. Yet, he still chose to welcome Chloe's parents and throw mine out onto the street. He was fully prepared to play that amnesia card for the rest of his life. Seeing me spacing out, Dr. Carter asked with concern, "Is something wrong? Is he having complications?" I shook my head, my voice hollow. No. I was just checking. I was worried the blood clot in his brain hadn't fully dissolved. Dr. Carter smiled. Don't worry. His scan was completely clear. He is 100% recovered. It won't affect your wedding plans at all. And it certainly won't affect your love life. 6 months ago, Zach was in a coma for a week. I took a leave of absence from work and stayed by his bedside for 7 days straight without sleeping. But the one time I went downstairs to pay the medical bills and asked Chloe to watch him for just 10 minutes. Zach woke up. No matter how much I explained, he insisted Chloe was his girlfriend. Back then, Dr. Carter had told me that because of the trauma, his brain couldn't handle any sudden shock. I know you love him, and I know you guys are getting married, the doctor had told me then. But give it 3 months. He will recover. It won't ruin your wedding. Who would have thought that life could be this cruel? Our wedding was never going to happen. As I took the elevator down, my mind was on overdrive, replaying everything Zach had done over the last 3 months. Now that I thought about it, his acting was actually terrible. I was just too blind, constantly using amnesia as an excuse to justify his behavior. Because I was so lost in my thoughts, I followed the crowd and accidentally got off at the OBGYN floor. By the time I realized my mistake, I had already walked quite a distance from the elevator. Just as I was about to turn back, I saw a familiar figure. Zach. Why was he here? Shouldn't he be at home making dinner with Chloe? I instinctively stopped outside one of the consultation rooms. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the doctor's voice drifted out. You're pregnant. 8 weeks. Are you keeping the baby? Before Chloe could even answer, Zach burst out eagerly. Yes. Yes, we are keeping it. Zach was holding the ultrasound scan in his hand. He couldn't wait another second. He pulled Chloe into his arms and hugged her tightly. Did you hear the doctor, Chloe? We're having a baby. He was already starting to plan. Before you start showing, we need to go to City Hall and get married. We need a wedding. I'll call my parents tomorrow. It's a bit rushed, and I'm sorry if it feels sudden. But I promise you, I will give you everything. You won't miss out on a single thing. Zach had his back to the door. But Chloe was facing it. Her eyes locked right onto mine. Seeing my expressionless face, she went deathly pale. She shoved Zach away. Zach followed her gaze and turned around. The moment he saw me, a flash of panic crossed his eyes. Nora? Aren't you supposed to be at work? Why are you at the OBGYN? I didn't answer his question. My eyes were glued to Chloe. I asked the obvious. You're pregnant? Chloe lowered her head guiltily, not daring to look at me. Zach stepped in front of her, shielding her. We're engaged, Nora. Things got passionate in bed and we didn't use protection. It's perfectly normal to get pregnant. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. I didn't know if I was answering him or just talking to myself. Right. You two are the engaged couple now. On the drive back, Chloe sat next to me in the back seat, staring at her feet without saying a single word. Zach, in the driver's seat, was on high alert. He kept checking the rearview mirror to watch me. It was as if he was terrified I would do something to his precious Chloe. But I just looked down at my phone and replied to the HR manager at my company. I accept the transfer. I will go to the Italy branch as the lead engineer. During the mid-year meeting, the corporate headquarters had decided to expand into the European market, selecting engineers from local branches to support the launch. Coincidentally, I was the only engineer in my branch who had minored in Italian in college. Before, even when I thought Zach had amnesia, I couldn't bear the thought of a long-distance relationship. But between my career and Zach, I had chosen him once. From now on, I was only making decisions for myself. When we got back to the condo, I realized why they had gone to the hospital in the first place. Chloe had started vomiting violently while making dinner. Zach was worried it was a stomach issue, so he rushed her to the ER. Because he was worried the smell of grease would trigger her morning sickness again, Zach turned to me. Nora, why don't you go into the kitchen and finish up dinner? Chloe looked at me with a conflicted expression. But Zach. Nora doesn't even know how to cook. Zach helped her sit down on the sofa. She can learn. We can't have a pregnant woman doing physical labor. The word pregnant pierced my ears. I turned around and went into the kitchen to wash the vegetables. Zach followed me in. The moment he entered, he locked the kitchen door behind him. If anything happens to Chloe or the baby, I will make your life a living hell. It felt like someone had taken a rusty knife and carved a giant hole in my chest. The cold wind was howling right through me. I didn't dare look up, terrified he would see the tears in my eyes. I forced my voice to sound as flat as possible. You're overthinking. Chloe is my best friend. I'm happy she's pregnant. Why would you think I'd hurt her? Zach's eyes lingered on me for a moment. He was probably trying to figure out if I knew he had regained his memory. After a few seconds, his tense posture relaxed slightly. I just mean, since you two are best friends, you should help take care of her more. I didn't say another word. A few minutes later, Chloe used the excuse of wanting ice cream to call me out of the kitchen. She looked at me, tears welling up in her eyes. I looked back at her, completely calm. When did it start? Her face was a mask of guilt, and she began to sob. It was that one night, we both got too drunk. I swear I took the Plan B pill the next morning. Maybe it was expired. I don't know how I still got pregnant. She hadn't mentioned a single word of this to me when it happened. And I had been living like a complete fool. I thought Zach was just a poor, tragic victim of amnesia who got the wrong girl. I thought Chloe was my loyal best friend who would never betray me. But now I saw the truth. I was the only one romanticizing the past. They had crossed the line long ago, right under my nose. Suddenly, Chloe dropped to her knees right in front of me. She raised her hand and slapped herself hard across the face. I'm a terrible person. I betrayed you. I lost my mind. I made a mistake. Just say the word, Nora. If you want me to, I'll go to the clinic and get an abortion tomorrow. There's no need, I said. She froze, looking up at me in disbelief. No, I'll do it. I'll go right now. Wait, what did you say? I pulled my skirt out of her tight grip. The baby is innocent. Chloe's eyes widened. But what about you? What are you going to do, Nora? Just then, Zach walked out of the kitchen with a plate of food. He walked right into the scene of Chloe kneeling at my feet. Chloe scrambled to her feet instantly, trying to cover. Zach. It's not what it looks like. I just slipped and fell, and Nora was about to help me up. Zach's temper flared instantly. He grabbed Chloe by the arm, pulling her behind him, and glared at me. Did you not hear a single word of what I said in the kitchen? Chloe was nice enough to let you stay in our home, and this is how you repay her. Chloe grabbed his arm, crying hysterically. It's not Nora's fault. Don't yell at her. Zach tried to control his breathing, his voice dropping to a cold whisper. Fine. I won't argue about what just happened. But you are moving out of my apartment today. Chloe is pregnant. It's not suitable for an outsider to live here anymore. Chloe's body went rigid. She turned her head slowly, looking at me to see my reaction. Okay, I said. Without a single second of hesitation, I went into the guest room and started packing my things. As I dragged my suitcase to the front door, Chloe held onto my hand, whispering, "Don't worry, Nora. I'll convince Zach to let you move back in tonight." "No need," I said, pulling my hand away. The moment I stepped out of the apartment building, I dialed my real estate agent. "I want to sell my condo. Cash buyer preferred. As fast as possible." Zach had played the amnesia card for so long, he seemed to have forgotten something very important. This condo was bought in full by my parents as my wedding gift. The morning air was crisp and unforgiving as the locksmith's van pulled up to the curb outside the high-rise. I stood on the sidewalk, holding a steaming cup of black coffee that tasted like burnt battery acid, watching the yellow warning lights flash on top of the worker's vehicle. In my coat pocket, the deed to the property rested inside a thick manila folder alongside a freshly notarized eviction notice issued under emergency squatter laws, expedited by my family's real estate attorney. Zach thought he was playing grandmaster chess. He had mapped out his pawn moves, calculated his sacrifices, and convinced himself he was the brilliant strategist who would end up with the grand prize, my best friend, his secret preference, and a rent-free sanctuary I had spent 3 years building for us. He had forgotten one simple rule of the game. He didn't own the board. "Miss Vance?" the locksmith asked, stepping out with a heavy metal toolbox slung over his shoulder. "Unit 14B? "That's right," I said, my voice steady, stripped of any emotion. "All locks replaced. Smart lock keypad wiped and reprogrammed. Master keys issued only to me. Got the paperwork?" I handed him the land registry document bearing my name and my parents' signatures, along with my official ID. He skimmed it, gave a sharp nod, and gestured toward the lobby elevator. 20 minutes later, the metallic whir of the power drill echoed down the quiet hallway. The original lock, the one Zach and I had picked out together at a home improvement store 2 summers ago, laughing while arguing over brushed nickel versus polished chrome, fell onto the door mat with a heavy, hollow thud. The locksmith swept the iron shavings onto a small dustpan, installed the new high-security deadbolt, and handed me a set of 3 heavy brass keys. "All set, ma'am. Code set to the temporary pin you requested. Old keys are useless now. Thank you." I handed him a generous tip and stepped inside the apartment. It smelled like roasted garlic, damp rain, and Chloe's cheap vanilla body mist. A half-empty box of prenatal vitamins sat on the granite island next to a list of nursery themes scribbled in Chloe's messy cursive on a pink sticky note. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel the burning, suffocating agony that had kept me awake for the past 6 months, listening to them whispering on the balcony, while I lay alone in the box-sized guest room. All I felt was a cold, crystalline clarity. I pulled out my phone, dialed my attorney, Arthur, and put him on speaker while I walked into the master bedroom. "Nora?" Arthur's voice boomed softly through the speaker. The formal notice of vacate was officially delivered to Mr. Miller's work email 20 minutes ago, accompanied by a physical process server who just left his office building. Given that his name was never on the lease, the mortgage, or the title, he has no legal standing to remain on the premises. "What about her?" I asked, opening the master closet. "Chloe Bennett has no lease agreement with you either. Under local property law, they are classified as non-paying guests whose license to occupy has been revoked." I gave them 48 hours to collect their personal belongings under police supervision. "Make it tonight," I said coldly, pulling Chloe's designer dresses off their hangers and tossing them into black trash bags. "I have a flight to Milan in 2 weeks. I want the listing live by Monday, and I want them out before the sun goes down. Consider it done." At 5:30 p.m., the sound of key brass scraping aggressively against the new deadbolt echoed through the heavy front door. I sat in the middle of the living room on a single vintage armchair, the only piece of furniture in the entire room that I had bought with my own saved money before meeting Zach. Everything else, from the Italian leather sectional to the custom walnut coffee table, was listed on the inventory sheet I had compiled for the estate sale agent. The doorknob rattled furiously. Then came the pounding. "Nora?" Zach's voice boomed through the wooden panel, laced with frustration. "Nora, open the damn door. What's wrong with the lock? My key isn't turning." I took a slow sip of ice water, waiting. Nora. Chloe's voice joined his, shrill and breathless. Nora, please. I need my iron supplements, and I'm feeling really dizzy. Did you change the locks? Is this a joke? I stood up, walked to the door, and unlocked the deadbolt with a slow, deliberate click. I opened the door 3 inches, keeping the heavy security chain in place. Zach stood in the hallway, dressed in his navy-tailored suit, his tie loosened at the collar. His face was flushed red with anger, holding 2 bags of takeout. Behind him, Chloe huddled against his shoulder, clutching her stomach with dramatic precision, her eyes rimmed with red. What the hell is this? Zach snapped, shoving his hand against the door. Why? Are the locks changed? Cut the games, Nora. Chloe needs to rest. You're in the wrong building, Zach, I said, my voice level and terrifyingly calm. Zach blinked, taken aback by my tone. For 6 months, he had been used to a broken, weeping Nora, a woman who walked on eggshells, who apologized for breathing too loudly, who washed his dishes while he massaged Chloe's feet on the sofa. What are you talking about? He demanded, trying to force the door wider, but the chain held firm. This is our condo. Open this door right now before I call the police. I let out a soft, genuine laugh that sent a visible shiver down Chloe's spine. Call them, I said. In fact, you don't have to. Look down the hall. Zach turned around just as 2 uniformed police officers stepped out of the service elevator, accompanied by Arthur, who was wearing an immaculate charcoal suit and holding a black leather briefcase. Mr. Zach Miller, one of the officers asked, checking a clipboard. And Miss Chloe Bennett? Zach's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Yes? What is going on here? Arthur stepped forward, handing a thick white envelope directly to Zach, then another to Chloe. I am Arthur Pendleton, legal counsel for Miss Nora Vance, Arthur announced, his voice carrying clearly down the carpeted corridor. You are currently trespassing on private property owned solely and exclusively by Miss Vance. Your personal belongings have been packed into marked boxes and placed in the building's basement storage facility. Zach's face went from angry red to a sickly, pale white. What? Zach stammered, looking from the paper to me, his hands beginning to tremble. No. No, this is a mistake. We live here. We've lived here for 2 years. I pay. He paused, his brain desperately searching for a lie that could save him. I pay for utilities. You paid the internet bill twice, I corrected him from behind the door. On my credit card. Nora. Chloe wailed, stepping around Zach to press her face against the crack of the door. How can you do this to me? I'm pregnant. You know I'm pregnant. Where are we supposed to go? That sounds like a conversation between a man and his fiancée, I replied, staring directly into Chloe's tear-filled eyes. Not a problem for their former landlord. Nora, stop this right now. Zach slammed his palm against the doorframe, panic finally breaking through his arrogant facade. You're doing this because you're bitter. Because of my brain injury. I can't help that my brain chose Chloe. The doctor said. Dr. Carter, I interrupted. Zach froze. The color completely drained from his lips. Dr. Carter called you 3 months ago, Zach, I said, every word dropping like a lead weight into the silent hallway. Right around Thanksgiving. The blood clot dissolved. Your memory came back 100%. He congratulated you. Chloe swung her head around to look at Zach, her brow furrowing in confusion. What? What is she talking about, Zach? You told me the doctor said your memory was still foggy last month. Zach swallowed hard, his eyes darting frantically between Chloe, the police officers, and me. I can explain, Zach stammered, his voice dropping an octave, losing all its previous authority. Nora, let's talk inside. Just you and me. Please. Oh, there's nothing left to explain, I said softly. I read your Reddit post. Zach. How do I explain this to my original girlfriend? Great thread, by the way. Very popular. Upwards of 12,000 upvotes, if I recall correctly. Zach looked as though he had been hit by a freight train. His knees visibly buckled. You knew, he whispered. I knew, I said. And now, officers, please escort these trespassers off my property. They have 15 minutes to collect their packed boxes from the basement before security hauls them to the curb. Nora, please. Chloe cried out as the police officer firmly placed a gloved hand on Zach's shoulder, guiding him backward. Nora, we don't have anywhere to go. All my things are in there. Your things are downstairs in contractor bags, Chloe, I said. Just like your loyalty. I shut the heavy oak door. I turned the brand new deadbolt. And for the first time in 6 months, I took a deep, clear breath of air that didn't feel poisoned. The news of Zach and Chloe's sudden eviction rippled through our social circle like a localized earthquake. For half a year, Zach had played the tragic, confused hero, and Chloe had played the self-sacrificing martyr who was forced to step up and care for her best friend's fiancé out of sheer obligation and brain trauma necessity. They had painted me as the bitter, emotionally unstable roommate who refused to move out because I couldn't accept medical reality. That narrative dissolved in less than 48 hours. I spent my final 2 weeks in the city living out of a high-end boutique hotel, paid for by my corporate relocation package. During the day, I supervised the liquidation of the condo. An estate buyer came in and bought the entire interior, set, furniture, art, rug collections, in one bulk wire transfer. By Friday afternoon, the condo was listed on the market at 5% below market value for a quick cash closing. It sold in 4 days to a young tech executive. While I was signing the deed transfer papers at Arthur's office, my phone lit up with a call from Zach's mother, Eleanor. Before the accident, Eleanor had treated me like a daughter. But during the 6 months of amnesia, she had completely flipped, treating Chloe like a saint, while ignoring my existence, even inviting Chloe to family dinners while explicitly telling me there wasn't enough room at the table. I picked up the call and put it on speaker. Nora. Eleanor's voice was hysterical, shrill enough to cut through the heavy glass of the high-rise office. What is the meaning of this? Zach and Chloe are staying in a cheap, filthy Airbnb on the outskirts of the city. Chloe is throwing up every morning, and Zach had to take a loan from his retirement fund just to pay the deposit on a lease for a miserable one-bedroom apartment. Hello to you too, Eleanor, I said, casually signing my signature on line 14 of the real estate deed. Don't you hello Eleanor me. How could you be so heartless? Throwing a pregnant woman out into the cold? Selling the condo out from under them? That was supposed to be Zach's home. Correction, I said, putting down my Montblanc pen. It was my home. Bought and paid for by my parents as my personal premarital asset. Zach never put a single dime toward the down payment, the mortgage, or the property taxes. He had brain trauma, she screamed. He wasn't in his right mind. He recovered in November, Eleanor, I said, my tone ice cold. He knew exactly who I was when he had security throw my parents out into the street on Thanksgiving. Did he tell you that part? Did he mention that while he was eating your pumpkin pie, he was fully aware that he was sleeping with my best friend in the bed I paid for? Silence fell over the line. Heavy, suffocating silence. He recovered in November? Eleanor stammered, her outrage suddenly losing its momentum. Ask him yourself, I said. Ask him about his Reddit post where he bragged about keeping up the fake amnesia so he could test drive Chloe while keeping me as a backup maid. And while you're at it, tell him my lawyers will be filing a small claim suit for the 6 months of back rent he owes me. I hung up before she could respond and turned to Arthur. Is the Italian work visa fully processed? Arthur smiled, sliding a blue leather passport holder across the mahogany table. All set, Nora. Your flight leaves Sunday at 8 p.m. The Milan branch has already arranged your corporate apartment near the Navigli district. Good, I said, standing up and buttoning my coat. Let's finish this. While I was preparing to leave the country, the reality of their new life was crushing Zach and Chloe under its weight. Without my salary, which had quietly covered the groceries, the maid service, the high-end utilities, and Zach's auto insurance, Zach was forced to face the harsh reality of living on his mid-level marketing manager income alone. Adding to his financial panic, Chloe had resigned from her job as a boutique assistant 3 months into the affair, claiming that the emotional stress of Caring for Zach made it impossible for her to work full-time. She had been living entirely off the allowance Zach was giving her, money that Zach had only been able to spare because he wasn't paying rent or living expenses at my condo. Now, reality came collecting its debt. On Thursday evening, 3 days before my flight, I met up with Sarah, one of the few mutual friends who had smelled bullshit months ago and stayed by my side, at a quiet wine bar downtown. Sarah took a heavy gulp of her Pinot Noir and burst out laughing. "You won't believe the drama happening in the group chat right now," Sarah said, pulling out her phone. "Zach tried to blast you on Facebook, claiming you stole his furniture and left him homeless while his fiancée was pregnant." "And?" I asked, sipping my sparkling water. "And I posted the screenshot of his Reddit post right in the comments," Sarah cackled, her eyes gleaming with absolute satisfaction. "Along with a copy of the property title showing your name and a statement from Dr. Carter's office confirming his November recovery date." I raised an eyebrow. "How did that go over?" "It was a bloodbath, Nora. Absolute bloodbath. His own cousin called him an irredeemable scumbag in front of 300 people. Half our friend group left the chat, and Chloe's sister posted a comment saying Chloe was dead too. Their family for betraying you like that." Sarah slid her phone across the table to show me the comment thread. I scrolled through the mess. The public romantic narrative Zach and Chloe had spent 6 months carefully constructing was completely incinerated. The comments were filled with disgust from former college friends, high school buddies, and colleagues. "You faked amnesia to cheat on Nora? You're sick, man. Chloe, you're an absolute snake. Nora paid your rent when you got laid off 2 years ago. Deleting your number, Zach. Don't ever call me again." "They're miserable," Sarah added softly, leaning back against her booth. "My roommate saw them at the IKEA yesterday. They were screaming at each other in the kitchen section. Chloe was crying because they couldn't afford the solid wood table she wanted, and Zach was yelling at her about her spending habits." I locked my phone screen and set it down. "Affairs are built on fantasy, Sarah," I said quietly. "They thrive on secrecy, adrenaline, and the taboo thrill of stolen moments. When you pull away the romance, the secret hotel rooms, and the stolen glances, when you replace all of that with dirty laundry, prenatal bills, cheap apartments, and real-life consequences, there's nothing left." "They're stuck with each other," Sarah agreed. "And that's the best revenge you could ever ask for." Saturday night, 24 hours before my departure. I was sitting in my empty hotel room, double-checking the locks on my luggage, when a knock came at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. It was Zach. He looked unrecognizable. The polished, handsome, arrogant man I had loved for years was gone. He was wearing a faded, wrinkled hoodie, his hair was unwashed, and deep purple bags hung under his bloodshot eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. I pulled open the door, leaving the heavy brass latch engaged. "You have 30 seconds before I call hotel security," I said, my voice deadpan. "Nora, please," Zach rasped, his hands trembling as he reached out to grasp the edge of the door frame. "Please, just 5 minutes. I'm begging you." 30 seconds, Zach. "Clock is ticking." "I made a mistake," he choked out, tears instantly filling his eyes, spilling down his pale cheeks. "A horrible, monstrous mistake. I don't love her, Nora. I never loved her." I didn't blink. I didn't say a word. I just watched him scramble like an actor who had forgotten his lines on opening night. "The accident, it messed with my head at first, I swear," he babbled frantically, his voice cracking. "When I woke up, I was confused. And then it became an ego trip. It felt like I was living out some fantasy without any consequences. But it was never real, Nora. She isn't you. Is that why you got her pregnant?" I asked smoothly. Zach flinched as if I had slapped him across the face. She trapped me," he stammered, desperation making his lies even more pathetic. "She told me she was on the pill. She did it on purpose because she knew I was starting to pull away, because she knew I was realizing how much I missed you. You literally posted on Reddit asking how to dump me so you could be with her." "Zach," I pointed out, my voice dripping with cold disgust. "You love the idea. of her until you realized she came with real bills, real babies, and a complete lack of character. I was stupid. I was weak. Zach dropped to his knees right there in the hotel hallway, grabbing the wooden frame of the door, weeping openly. I don't want this life, Nora. I don't want to live in that terrible, noisy apartment. I don't want to spend the rest of my life paying child support to a woman I can't stand to look at. I want my home. I want you. I looked down at the man who had broken my heart into 1,000 pieces 6 months ago. The man I had cried rivers over while sitting alone in a guest room, begging the universe to give him his memory back. Looking at him now, prostrated on the floor, weeping like a pathetic child who had broken his own toy and was screaming at his mother to fix it, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No pity. No residual love. Just profound, absolute apathy. Stand up, Zach, I said quietly. He looked up, a tiny flicker of desperate hope dancing in his wet eyes. Nora? You hear me? You made your choice 6 months ago, I said, leaning in close so he could hear every single syllable clearly. You traded 4 years of real loyalty, a peaceful life, and a woman who would have died for you, for a cheap thrill. With a woman who betrayed her best friend without batting an eye. Nora. You two deserve each other, I continued, my voice calm, unwavering, and sharp as a scalpel. You are two toxic, hollow human beings who found each other in the dark. Now you get to live in the light together, feeling the burn of every single choice you made. I stepped back from the door. Have a nice life, Zach. Don't ever contact me again. Nora. No. Nora, please. I slammed the heavy door shut, locked it, and pulled the deadbolt into place. Through the wood, I could hear him sobbing, banging his fists weakly against the panel, calling my name over and over again until the muffled sounds of hotel security guards approached, telling him to leave the premises before they called the police. I walked over to the desk, poured myself a glass of cold water, and picked up my passport. My phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. It was from Chloe. Nora, please tell Zach to come home. He's been gone for hours and he's not answering my calls. I'm having cramps and I'm scared. I know you hate me, but please just tell him to come back. I have no one else. I didn't block the number. I didn't reply. I simply deleted the message, laid down on the king-sized hotel bed, closed my eyes, and slept peacefully for 8 uninterrupted hours. The next evening, the roar of the jet engines echoed through the cabin as the Boeing 777 lifted off the runway, tilting upward into the night sky. Below me, the grid of city lights shrank into tiny, glittering diamonds before being swallowed by the soft, dark expanse of clouds. I adjusted my silk eye mask, unbuckled my seatbelt, and poured a small glass of champagne provided by the flight attendant. I pulled out my tablet and opened my corporate email. A welcome letter from the head of the European engineering branch was sitting at the top of my inbox. Welcome to the team, Nora. We are thrilled to have you lead the New Milan initiative. Your new life begins tomorrow. I smiled, a real, genuine, unburdened smile that reached my eyes for the first time in 6 long, suffocating months. Zach and Chloe were trapped in the claustrophobic, miserable hell of their own making, bound together by guilt, financial ruin, an unwanted pregnancy, and mutual resentment that would slowly rot their lives from the inside out for the next 20 years. They had taken my home, my relationship, and my best friend. But in doing so, they had accidentally set me free. I took a slow sip of the cold champagne, turned off the tablet screen, looked out the window into the endless velvet night, and let go of the past forever.